Today, I have the pleasure of having a distinguished guest joining me all the way from Barcelona, Spain. Let me welcome her into the studio. Aline Badr, welcome.
Thank you so much, Krista. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me. You have such an inspiring background. You are truly a leader of today. Allow me to say for our viewers listening to this stream that thanks to OneStream Live is multi-stream on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube. About you, a couple of things. You've lived in so many countries. You speak 4 languages. You are a global executive coach, a reputation advisor, a public speaker, a lecturer. You have helped many leaders around the world and in major companies and leading corporations to build trusted reputations. And you'll tell us all about in today's episode. You've developed the influence and impact leadership model. You're teaching, you have a course. What don't you do? Well, lots to unpack today with Aline Badr. Stay tuned if you're interested to hear more of Aline's insights. But first, let's start a little bit with your journey, Aline. You have truly a fascinating life. The more I read about your background, tell me a little bit about you as a person and what kind of leader are you? How has your life brought you to where you are today? What challenges you had to overcome? Where has life taken you? You've been places and you've done a lot of interesting things.
Wow. I mean, that's a loaded first question, Krista, but sure. Yes, indeed. I mean, I've lived in 5 different countries and that really has shaped me. And I think, if there's one way, listening to your question about, what kind of person am I would say that I'm somebody who's active in my life. And that certainly means like taking up space. You're given life so that you can do something with it. And I think that's the thing that I really believe to be true about myself, is that every opportunity, every country, every change, I'm active in it. I participate in what's in front of me, regardless of how hard it is, because I think there's an element of curiosity that we have to implement when we're going through various different things, whether it's a country or a job or, change of a career. That curiosity can help us, it can help us really learn, what's in front of us, this year that we're in, or this job that we're in, or this country that we're in. And so being active, being responsible as a human being, being responsible in our leadership as well, is something that I would say is a pretty succinct way to describe, who I am and how I view the world. You're
originally from Lebanon, right?
Indeed, yes.
I was recently, it came to my feed, I think it was on Instagram, a little video, a short video showing the wing of an aeroplane, and the text read that you don't know how brave you are until you realize that at 21 you packed a suitcase, a 23-kilo suitcase, and left your country going to the unknown. Could you relate to that? How old you were when you take your first step to the big world and facing your dreams?
Indeed. Yeah. I was 14 when, my family left Lebanon, and I'm very, very proud of where I come from. We left Lebanon under, difficult circumstances to move to Canada, but I came to Canada with a lot of, roots, a lot of values, and a lot of ways of being that really influenced who I am. But you do move to Canada, and then you learn so much about the different worlds that there are. And so leaving young really shaped me. And in fact, an interesting thing that I recently discovered about my life. So leaving, Lebanon when I was 14 to Canada. And then in my 20s, I moved to the Caribbean. In my 30s, I moved to France. And then in my, 40s, I moved to Barcelona. And that's, where I am. And I've lived in several, different countries in between. So it's really interesting what happens to us when we're young, how it really inspires, different ways. And it's interesting for me that I picked up this idea of no matter how difficult the change is, like leaving your friends and where you come from at 14. There is another side to the equation, which is curiosity, which is like, wow, what is on the other side of this? And then it became my life, right? And so a very, very difficult thing to leave something you love and people you love. But also really look at life in a way that's like, I wonder what this difficulty can bring in terms of opportunity.
Yeah. So you spoke about curiosity and trust and opportunity, and in this multicultural experience that you've had in your life, and of course you carried in your professional life as well. You are the lady associated with trust and reputation and influence. From the global perspective and from your own international experience, how is trust seen around the world? Do you see cultural differences? And in your experience working with leaders, coaching them, working closely with them from multinational corporations, when you meet people and you work with them, is trust well understood in the same way, or are there many layers to it? Let's peel the onion here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there's many doors that you can use to enter the world of trust. But at the end of the day, it really is this feeling that you leave with someone, this decision that they make in their heart, in their head, that they can rely on you, that, that they feel that, they can trust you and they can rely on you. But certainly you move into it with different doors, right? I think, in the East, a handshake is trust. Right? In the West, perhaps, I want to see results before I can trust you. So, there's different ways that you can, and I think it's really important question that you're asking, which is we as leaders have to look at the difference around the world. We can't just come into different places in the world with our idea of what trust is. We have to listen. We have to ask questions. We have to become curious. We have to really, really engage from a place of, a beginner's mind, as we say in coaching, and I think we have to understand the context where we are. And that's certainly what I've done. That's certainly what I've seen. So you have to enter the door, right, of trust. And then once you're in it, it's a very similar thing, which is, can you give them a feeling, right, that they can trust you? And that's, a very interesting space to be in, this idea of feeling. But yes, absolutely, there's difference. But at the end of the day, they really need to feel seen, heard, that you've given them the space, to explain themselves and give them that, confidence that what they feel is true.
You talk about explain themselves and get in touch with their inner self and their own ideas, and then how they're perceived. So it's a matter of identity and perception. You've written somewhere that great leaders become great because they lead themselves first.
Yeah.
So how do you tackle this when you're working with your clients? And for all our viewers checking this stream at the moment, interested in the topic of leadership and self-leadership, how do you lead yourself first? What are the concrete steps one can take? What do you have to do first to become a good leader for your own self?
Yeah, and let's look at why this is important before we give the steps, right? Like, why is it important to lead yourself first? Because I think, look, there's a very interesting stat, and there's a study that I follow every year, and it's been, done every year for 20 years, I think now. It's the Trust Barometer, and it gives you a measure, of whether people trust you. And in business, they look at various different, industries, but in business, 68% of the population doesn't trust their leaders, right? And we have to look at why that is. And from last year to this year, there's an increase by 3 points in terms of this idea that employees are not trusting their leaders. And for me, what I've been able to sort of, discover through my own research is that a lot of people, it's so easy to point to somewhere else that's wrong before they point inward first. It's so much easier to look at everybody else on our team and what they can't do versus what is it that we are contributing to the problem itself, because we always are contributing to the problem. And so that shift is really important, because that's actually what gives trust. And so trust is earned when they see that you're in alignment with yourself. And so to go into the steps that you're asking me about, what does it take to actually align? This idea of self-leadership for me is knowing who you are, understanding how you're showing up with people, and then, understanding the perception that people have about you. If you can align those three, that's how you gain trust. And that first step is understanding your values, right? What are your values? Are the values that you live your own? That's the first chapter, in fact, in my book, that I'm writing. It's this idea of, are we living the values that are ours, or are we living values that are society's or cultural or somebody else's? And so when you don't live those values, then people feel that. They feel the misalignment in your presence. They feel the misalignment in your leadership. And when you're in alignment, people also feel that. They feel your confidence. They feel your calm. They feel your sense of direction, your sense of clarity. And so those first steps of really figuring out, what are my values? What's my purpose here? What am I doing, right? In terms of this position that I'm in, how can I help? Am I thinking only about what I want, or am I actually thinking about what other people want? That's self-leadership, is understanding whether you are contributing to the problem or whether you're helping, the team move forward with your own help.
You spoke about purpose. So purpose-led leadership, leading yourself first, and as you said, aligning all this three elements together. Are some leaders, as we're talking now in Leadership Spotlight, we have a leader as yourself in the spotlight, but you're also working with leaders. And for everybody outside this stream, listening and viewing us, are some leaders trustworthy by nature, or they radiate trust? You see them and you just blindly trust them? Or can anybody listening now able to cultivate the trust, as you said, with this step? Are some more trustworthy than others? What is your take? Can you learn to be a trusted, purpose-led leader?
I think the short answer is absolutely yes. You can absolutely learn how to become a trusted leader, but that means taking responsibility for your leadership. That means starting with yourself first, right? That's the responsibility, of leadership. And I think what happens, which is really interesting, and what I notice in my work, is when a leader does that work, right? When a leader, really figures out their purpose, their values, how they're coming across, whether their thought process is moving things forward or not, whether, their emotions are taking over without them knowing, whether they listen, they don't listen, I think when you learn that, how to become a trusted leader, what happens is you have a radar, right, that really gives you an idea of whether that person in front of you is, in your word, trustworthy, right? So you're able to then really assess, you're able to discern, because you've done the work. You understand what is trust and what it isn't, right? And in the age of social media, in the age of, things like podcasts or things like, brands, right? Developing personal brands. There's a lot of different shiny objects that you can put around, someone that can play the role of trust. And so we need to really arm ourselves with, building trust ourselves, trusting ourselves, so that we can recognize whether it's true or not.
So it's all about authenticity. So not everything that sparkles and glitters is gold, right?
Absolutely that, Krista. You nailed it. Absolutely that. And I think that work that we do by leading ourselves first really gives us that radar to really then discern in a way that is objective, right? Whether that company, that individual, that job, that person that's interviewing us is, can be trusted or is trustworthy, as you say.
You've worked a lot with leaders from a variety of cultures and industries. Have you noticed what are the most trust-breaking behaviors or destructive behaviors that you observed that you had to coach people to get rid of or let go and go into that introspection and perhaps redirect themselves if they want to remain leaders, or to become, instead of being sort of appointed in a position of leadership, and become really true, authentic leaders. What are some destructive, trust breaking behaviors you've noticed that people had to really unlearn and develop?
Yeah. In terms of skills, I'll answer this question first with the skill that you're after, right? Which is one of the worst things that a leader can do is their inability to listen, right? What does that mean? It means like creating the space, the presence to really hear what the other person is saying, to really focus on the words, on the body language of the people in the meeting room with you or on Zoom. To really have that skill is really important, because that really, really shapes trust, and it makes it, bigger and bigger. I think, what happens and what I've seen often, in coaching, is that there's this unconscious behavior that a leader doesn't know they have that is breaking trust, right? When it's all about them, when, they're, doing things like, micromanaging, or whether they're distancing themselves, or whether they're just avoiding conflict. All of those things break trust. But the thing that I should point out is that we often don't know we're doing that until we lead ourselves first. Right? Until we get a coach, or, we talk to people, or we reflect, or we read books, or we take courses, right? We have to really understand what's happening in our unconscious behavior that is contributing to that lack of trust inside organizations. And, there's a great book that is one of my favorite books in the world. It's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Goldsmith. He's top executive coach in the world. And that, even if you don't read the book, by the way, that title should really give you a beautiful insight. What got you here won't get you there, because God bless us, like all of us, we do things with great intentions, right? We want to solve everybody's problems, right? We want to give advice. We want to give direction. And so these are beautiful intentions. But what got us here to the success, to our ability to lead teams, now is actually creating problems, right? Now your advice is no longer needed, right? Now your technical skills are no longer needed. So you have to remove the facade, right? And really see what's happening in your unconscious behavior. And that's where coaching becomes quite helpful, so that you can really understand what's happening unconsciously that is contributing to the lack of trust. Like your inability to listen is because of something unconsciously, right? That, a lot of leaders would be having. So that's the work, and it's really tough work. I want to acknowledge that it's not easy, right? Yeah. To take, what got you here, remove it, put it aside, and then learn something new.
And this is exactly the growth mindset that everybody should have. You spoke about curiosity. I can see you're a curious person. I could resonate with that. And I think everybody should have this growth mindset. Of course, if you don't want to have the growth mindset, perhaps you're stuck there in the same. But as you said, the world is changing. You might become redundant. Your position might be lost, right? So that's great advice for everybody. I think listening to this, wherever they are in the hierarchy of any organization, if you don't have that curiosity and growth mindset, what are you going to do? What is the future going to be for you? So excellent book as well. Aline, you are a person who likes to share their insights. You're a teacher, you are a coach, you have a website. It's passing here. Here it is. Also, once more, become a trusted leader. Visit Aline Badr's website, alinebadr.com. You find a lot of great resources as well. But I would like to ask you about the methodology, the model you have developed, and I'll bring it shortly here on screen for our viewers, the influence and impact model. This is the cornerstone of your research. And tell us a little bit about this. I'll put it on full screen so our viewers can watch it. Guide us through what this is all about.
Yeah. I mean, thanks for bringing that up. But, so my career spans over 30 years. And so the first 15 years, I really worked in branding and PR and communication and reputation management. And about 15 years into my work, I realized that that work is not sustainable. And so you have to really get some clarity, right, in terms of developing brands or developing, public profiles and visibility. That's when I began to see, a shift in my work. That's when I went back to school and I studied coaching and became a coach and created such a model. And the model is based on 3 strategies. It's based on building awareness so that you can gain the clarity as a leader, as an executive. But clarity alone is not enough. It's like reading a book and putting it on your shelf and just saying that you read it, but you're not implementing anything. So you have to move into behavior. You have to really understand, really develop certain behaviors that are going to reflect that clarity that you say you have built, right? You're going to have to build proof points for the people that you lead to collect. And in that behavior that you're learning, what you're doing is you're not waiting for perfection to actually show up as clarity. You're building confidence that's true. I really make it a point to say it's a confidence that's true because it's a confidence that people feel. It's an authentic confidence. As you said earlier, it's this idea that you don't have to be perfect, but you have to show up. You have to really be present. You have to listen. You have to be flexible in your leadership. And once you have that clarity and you have that confidence, then you really have to become visible. And I think that's the part of the reputation, that I come from, that I still think is really important, because building visibility is about actively shaping the perception that people have about you so that you can gain that credibility. You've led yourself first, you've fine-tuned your behavior, you've told people who you are, right? You've practiced being who you are. You've publicly said this to people. And what I mean by publicly, Carissa, is not go on LinkedIn and tell people who you are. You can do that. That's one channel that is very effective. But there's many different ways to be visible. Visible when inside your organization. Are you telling people who you are? Are you letting them know what matters to you, what your values are, what your purpose is, how your journey of leadership has been shaped, what you're still working on, what you need help with? That's visibility. And so that model is the model that I teach at a couple of different universities and in different places in the world. I'm writing about this and certainly I coach in this way. And the model becomes a program that's bespoke depending on the level of knowledge that the client, has. And so that's the model that I created.
Excellent. You said that you're writing about it. That brings me to your upcoming book. Here it is. It's due next fall, right? So Trusted is the title of it. And then below it reads, Building Reputations People Believe in. So tell us a little bit in anticipation of your upcoming book. What is the main, of course, is it what we're discussing now, but what is the gist of your book? If we were to, let's imagine the future. We've gotten your book in our hands and we've read it. What do you want? What do you want that we leaving with as the main point of your book, the main premise?
Yeah, thank you. And, I should say that, the upcoming book, it feels like it's taking such a long time,
How long you've been writing?
Yeah, so, it's been a year, of writing, and my publisher and my editor and I, we're in it right now. We're putting together all the chapters, and we have to go through the editing process. So it is a big job, right, to write a book, but it's a lovely, lovely honor to be able to share, insight with the world. And I think the book is a reflection of my model. The book is a reflection of the experiences and the stories, that I have come across, working for so many years now, of what it takes to actually become trusted, right? And there's a focus on the word trusted, right? It's not trust, it's trusted, which actually makes the reader become active in who they're becoming, right? And so that's really the message of the book, is that if you want to be trusted, you have to take an active role in your own leadership. You have to learn to lead yourself first. You have to go through the difficulty of fine-tuning your behavior. You have to let go of things that got you here so that you can build things that will get you there. And you have to take that brave approach of telling people who you are, right? And so the main message for me is that we want to build reputations people believe in, not just build reputations. And by the way, there's a difference between a brand and a reputation. A brand is you telling the world who you are. A reputation is people telling you who you are. And we have to be a lot more focused on the perceptions that people have of us versus what we have to say about ourselves. It's a combination of both. And so that's the message of the book, is that we have to really take an active role, right, in having that trust, from other people.
Aline, you have been, as you said, you've been and this book is your own project, is not AI, right? You've investigated, your research, you put your sweat and blood and tears, I don't know, your personal passion into it. As you said, you have a career that spans decades, 15 plus years. So this is a book that it's really the epitome of all your knowledge, right? And that you want to share with the world. And I look forward to reading your book. It's very interesting topics. You said that the world is changing rapidly, and there's a lot of technological innovations as well, right? How do you keep this human centricity and dealing with coaches and people and leaders in a personal, human-centric, one-on-one way? And how can leaders, in this era of AI and influencers and AI videos, which perhaps the reality and the identity could be a bit fuzzy concept. So how do you balance human centricity on the one hand, and then keeping up with the rapid innovation, the rapid change? And what does it mean in terms of identity, as you said, branding, your personal brand and your personal reputation, where everything around you, around leaders, is changing so much? What is to be trusted anymore?
That's such a great, also loaded question. There's so many angles that I can.
You know what I mean? Like, do you trust your own eyes nowadays, or your own? Your own eyes, what you read, is it authentic?
Yes.
What you see, is it an authentic image or video? Because now we are not AI, everybody watching us. We are two ladies live streaming here for you, for your eyes only, speaking our minds. And we are not AI avatars. We are authentic. We are real. We say our thoughts. But in this day and age, for leaders, it must be very challenging to navigate through sort of being aware themselves, and then around them, maybe they don't even trust their own eyes or how they are perceived. It's a fine balance, I think. It is very difficult.
It's very difficult indeed, and it's very challenging, and it's very overwhelming, all of this change. But I just want to take us back a little bit, because I think that it's not a new thing, this complication that we're going through. Like, there's a lot of changes that we've had. So let me just kind of break down what I've heard a little bit. It's this idea that you said, what's the balance between the human and the technology? And I just want to remind all of us that the technology is still the tool, right? Still the tool, right? At least, let's say, for the next 5 years. Mm-hmm. And humans are using the tool. And so it's still a very human world that's using tools, that's using technologies. And I think we have to really backtrack and really think about the wider view, and not focus so much on this idea that everything is AI. And so it's still a human being that is making a decision. It's still a human being that is interacting with the AI, or telling the AI what to do, or prompting, or all of those things that, people talk about these days. And so I think, and in terms of what do you believe, right? Something that I heard you say, like, what do you believe these days? What's authentic? That's also not new, Krista. Can I tell you why? I'll tell you why. Because in PR, right? In PR, whatever was on the first page of the paper was what's the thing that you believe. Whatever showed up in the news at 6 p.m. was the thing that you believed. Whatever is on the first page of Google is the thing that you believed. So now whatever is just showing up, it's the thing that you believe. So the risk is not new. What needs to be stressed, which is also not new, is the really important skill of critical thinking. Mm-hmm. And when you take that active role, when you lead yourself first, when you build that trust within yourself, you can then discern what's true and what's not. You are not swayed by what this wave of newness is, whether it's technology, whether it's whatever it is that's going to come up, in the next 5-10 years. And so I think when we look at it from that place, it's not new, just the tool is changing. And yet we have to always go back to the human that has to build the critical thinking in order to assess whether that's true or not, right? So that active role, that responsibility that we take as human beings, it's definitely more work. There's no question. It's definitely a slower process, right? But it's an important thing that a trusted leader should go through, right? Because to be trusted is to be believed in, right? And so here's what's going to happen if you believe in the AI and then it proves you wrong 2 weeks later or a month later, a year later. Trust is gone like that. But when you do the slower work and the difficult work of leading yourself, of showing up in a really authentic way, you're building sustainability over time. People believe you all the time for a long time, even if you make the odd mistake. And so we want to move from the immediate, right, thing that we believe in to something that we deeply believe in. If I don't know if I'm making myself,
you spoke about sustainability, and that leads me to a question that I wanted to ask you regarding the future of coaching, the future of the work that you do, and of leadership, coaching the leaders of tomorrow. How do you, as an executive coach, with your experience that draws off from many disciplines, from psychology, as you said, to branding, reputation management, neuroscience, so many disciplines come into this field that you're an expert in. So what is the future of coaching the leader of tomorrow? Do you have to, as a coach, in order to help the people, the leaders you're working with, to guide them and find those solutions and become those purpose-led leaders? What new disciplines are hot and interesting for you? Because you have a curious mind. Are you studying another discipline? For instance, I know you've studied a lot, you have a great background. Are you learning something else now in order to help you understand the world and help the people, your clients you're working with? And then what is the future of leadership at SAP? So first, about you as a coach and coaches being equipped. What tools do they need? What new disciplines perhaps they need to be aware of or learn more about? And then about leaders themselves, how is the future looking for them? Because in AI terms and technology terms, perhaps 1 year is 1,000 years. So the rapid changes. Approach it from you as a professional coach, and then from the leaders of today out there listening to us.
Absolutely. I think it's a crucial thing for anybody, not just coaches, to continue learning. And so for me personally, I'm an avid, reader. I on coaching.com all the time, which is a wonderful resource for us coaches to learn different, methods and practices. And so I'm always taking different courses, and when it comes to my elevation or evolution as a coach. So that's absolutely true. Also, I'll have to tell you that writing a book is a wonderful way to actually deepen what you know and to really understand what the reader of your book really needs. And so that's a process that I'm going through that is actually deepening a lot more my knowledge of what's needed. In terms of this idea of coaching and AI and the future and leaders, here's what I see that, worries me a little bit, I have to tell you, which is this way of using AI to get coached, right? And so I've done some research on AI and the way that it actually communicates. I've certainly tried it myself. And what I've noticed is for any leader that wants immediate change or they want to become something new, they have the tendency to go to AI because it's immediate. And AI will tell you something and then you try it. And so what I will continue to stress is that the responsibility of leadership is to take your time, right? You cannot change over time. And by the way that you cannot change immediately, you have to change over time. And so you need that external disruptor. And that's what a coach is. And I use the word disruptor here specifically because what I've noticed about AI is that it's very complementary. It all tells you how great you are, how wonderful you are.
Excellent, brilliant thought.
It doesn't challenge you. So if an executive is using AI for coaching with a blind spot, with unconscious behavior, then their prompts are going to keep them where they are. It's actually not going to deepen the awareness of what they need to work on. And so it just creates a status quo. And a lot of people are fine with status quo, but I'm interested in helping the individual that
shaking it.
Yeah. I'm interested in the individual and the executive that have tried many different things, but are like, okay, fine, I have to go deep, right? So I think listen, it's not going away. Coaching in the AI world is not going away, but still there are these individuals that are going to try it, and then they're going to go back to needing a human being, right? With as much information as I have, and like you point to, I've learned many different methods of coaching, and I've continued to, I can't coach myself because there's a limit, right? I have a coach, I have a therapist. There's always a responsibility to have someone else reflect something back to us in a way that's challenging us, in a way that's disrupting our way of thinking. And so far, what I've seen with AI, and if people are coaching it, using it for coaching, is that it's keeping you where you are.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And you also said taking your time. This is very important because everything is so fast. You cannot snap your fingers and become a great leader, finding your purpose, and then you spend a session with an AI and immediately all of a sudden you're enlightened. It's a process, right? It takes time. And as you said, it is really putting a mirror, someone to tell you perhaps to even the things that you don't want to hear, or to challenge your thinking, right? I think it's not a comfortable position perhaps to be coached or have people telling you things that perhaps shake your equilibrium and status quo. It's not pleasant, right? It's not easy.
Yes, indeed. I think, look, we have to get uncomfortable. I think that's the way to growth. There's no other way. I don't know any other equation. Life proves us to be that way. There's difficulty and there's ease in life. It's an equation, but you have to go through the difficulty to, find the ease and continue to want to find the difficulty. That's curiosity. That's change. That's evolution. If you want to grow as an individual, that's what you have to go through. There's no other way, but there is the individual that's happy with the status quo, and that's fine too. But the world is huge and there's room for all of us. I'm speaking to those that want to get uncomfortable
and become a trusted leader. So check out more alinebadr.com. Check out later on in a few months her new book, Trusted. And of course, connect with her on LinkedIn. Same name, here it is, at Aline Badr. So Aline, is there anything in your mind that we haven't touched upon and you absolutely want to take it out and share with the world, take it off your chest and share with our viewers?
I think one of the things that I speak so much to my value system, which is this concept of separating intent from impact, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I think we have to, as human beings, by the way, not just executives and leaders, we have to separate intent from impact. What does that mean? It means that we have to really care about the other, right? It's not just that your intention is good, right? It's not, that's wonderful. That's a great start, that you have wonderful intentions, but we really have to move into the space of how is this landing? What's the impact of my word here? What do they feel when I say what I say or do what I say? And so I think for me, it really is something that I want to, stress that this is important, that the impact that we have on people every single day is really what makes or breaks the trust.
Excellent. Aline Badr, thank you so much for joining today's Leadership Spotlight. You're a person that people pay, CXO level, high potential leaders pay to listen to and be coached by. So it's a great pleasure and honor to have you here on Leadership Spotlight. You're a leader, a thought leader yourself. Thanks a million for sharing your insights with our viewers.
Thank you so much, Krista. It's been a lovely, lovely conversation. I've enjoyed your questions. So
thank you so much.